Hey guys, it's Narissa Sue, and welcome to the Lioness Method podcast for female business owners, entrepreneurs, and leaders who are passionate about growing their leadership skills, building amazing teams, and solving real life problems with a growth mindset. Again, I'm your host, Narissa Sue, and today we're going to have the pleasure of speaking with Lauren Brock, from the Advocacy Group, the founder and CEO. And Lauren is no stranger to advocacy. It's her mission, her purpose, and her life's work. Lauren formed the Advocacy Group to provide the gold standard in advocacy services, and she developed TAG's range of offerings to specifically meet the needs of those struggling to help addicted loved ones who lack the experience to know whom to trust and where to turn for support. Lauren started on this path back in 2000, volunteering with Hollywood's homeless population, personally mentored in advocacy by philanthropist Aileen Getty. Lauren met people from all walks of life seeking services through Aileen's GettLove organization, and as it scaled from a breakfast line to a full-service day center, she was working with homeless children and families. This was also Lauren's introduction to her decades of work with foster youth and court advocacy. So please welcome Lauren Brock. So hi, Lauren.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super excited to dig in and just learn more about you and your business. How are you feeling today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be sitting with you. Thank you for having me.
Amazing.
Can you hear me?
So I can hear you. It's coming through nice and clear at the moment. So I'd love to just take a deep dive right in. I'm going to ask you a few questions so we can kind of get to know about more about what you do. And I'd love to start with who you serve and how you serve them.
So we serve, mostly we serve people who are struggling with addiction and mental illness, and then we serve their families. So generally when, if you have a loved one who is suffering from, addiction or mental illness, we help come in as opposed to Googling rehab. We can, if you Google rehab, I don't know if you've ever Googled rehab.
There's about a million choices.
No real way to differentiate. Yeah, there's a million choices and they all kind of look the same. So we kind of can kind of step in and help you navigate that road from kind of beginning to end. We kind of step in and help families and meet them, wherever they're at and wherever their loved one is in that process from kind of beginning to end.
Amazing. That's so needed. I know with the pandemic, I feel like addiction has been kind of rampant and a little bit out of control. So it's a beautiful service that you're providing. And yeah, I'm curious. Go ahead.
No, it has been. I think that, addiction, mental health, like it's kind of a disease of isolation. It's a disease of it's kind of, it's something that wants you to be alone. It wants you to be suffering. And the pandemic has just really heightened that. It has people isolated and alone. And so it really has taken people who are already suffering and it forces them into more isolation. And it's really increased it and it's made it, it's taken away people's ability to connect. And it's magnified it on such a deeper level. And so people who, whether they were, in beginning stages of addiction, it's just magnified it in such a deeper level for so many people.
Absolutely. I was actually speaking to someone earlier this week that was supporting a loved one that felt that they were just doing just what you said. They were really isolating themselves and that the addiction really took hold and escalated very quickly. And the family is in a place where they're not even sure how to support them, at this point. Like, what would be some of your best tips in supporting somebody that's in active addiction right now that maybe doesn't even is saying that they don't want help?
It's a good question, and I think what's one of the things that is been so helpful about what we do. I think everybody is so different, you know, there's and what's so complicated about, you know, addiction and how it has, it's changed and manifested so much over the years is that we don't really see a lot of just primary addiction anymore. There's been so much mental health and dual diagnosis, you know, coupled with addiction. And so we don't really see two people that have the same, struggling with the same thing, right? So we really take everything on a case-by-case issue. So you know, one person is struggling with alcoholism. If somebody has just primary mental health, like everything is going to be different. And so while one person you could say, you know, maybe they would just need to, you know, start seeing a therapist, or another person could maybe just start going to meetings, or another person, you know, just needs connection to family. Like, you know, it would depend on what the person needs, you know, and we really kind of pride ourselves on being able to go in and sit with the family and do a proper clinical assessment and see what's going on and see what those needs are. Do they need an intervention? Do they need bringing that family together and seeing, you know, exactly what it is that they need, and then taking them from beginning to end, until we get all the way across the finish line and getting them to, you know, what I always say is like the goal is for us to be unemployed. You know, we want to get them all the way across the end and to where we're out of a job at the end, you know.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think that's so empowering for you to be it sounds like you're educating the family on how to support that individual. And also, what are some things that you recommend for the family as far as their self-care during their support role of the person in addiction?
I think the biggest piece for the family is education. You know, it's very difficult for families to understand what's going on, you know, and it can be very confusing and very complicated because it's, you know, they don't understand if it's a primary addiction, like why they, you know, their loved one just can't stop. You know, why can't they put down the thing that's harming them the most? You know, why don't they, you know, if they're isolated, why don't they just come be part of the family again? Like, why have they changed so much? Why is the behavior changed? Like, what is going on with the loved one where they're not the same person that they used to be? If it's their child, you know, why is their child not the same as they used to be? You know, and so educating themselves on like what's going on, I think is the best thing for the family to be able to do. And I think one of the things that we, you know, really do is to make sure that the people that we are working with, you know, whether it's treatment centers or outpatient centers or therapists or doctors, clinicians, that they are providing families with that education. You know, we work with, I'm on the board of a nonprofit for adolescents who provide a free support group for parents on the weekends. And free is not something that you hear very often in mental health, in addiction, in medical services. That definitely, I mean, anywhere. I don't really hear free that often anywhere. But this group, One Recovery, they do free support groups for parents, and then they have free groups for the children, for the kids, for the teenagers as well. And I find that to be, you know, an incredible asset for families to be able to, one, share space with each other, you know, to be able to share their stories and, you know, either, you know, what they're going through with insurance or what they're going through with their, you know, teenagers, or, you know, not even just teenagers, but their, you know, their kids or their loved ones, and to be able to share their shared experience in that space, I think is super, super helpful, and to be able to provide places where they're also getting education is super important.
No, I love that, because I think what you said hits the nail on the head of a lot of the patients that or clients rather, that I've worked with in the past is, you know, they feel very misunderstood. And education, I think, is definitely key in understanding that addiction takes over the person, right? It's like, you know, our cell phone getting a virus and then freezing up. It's no longer a matter of choice anymore. It's the addiction has taken over that person's character, their personality, their behaviors. And so it's not as simple as, oh, just put the bottle down or just walk away from whatever it is, right?
And as a parent, you know, you want to just keep, you know, your whole goal in life is to keep your child safe, right? And whether it's your child or your husband or your sister or brother, whatever it is you just want to, you see your loved one struggling and suffering, and you just want to protect and keep them safe. And sometimes that can be, while keeping them safe is obviously of the utmost importance, sometimes when what you're doing you think is keeping them safe is can oftentimes be doing more harm than good. Like if you're putting money on the problem, or you can be that enabling, can oftentimes be doing much more harm than good. And so getting that education is absolutely key.
And I love that you're
Sorry.
Yeah, and the support. I know, I was just going to say that I love that you're offering resources too for the listeners, that if they are going through this, then what was the community groups that they could contact? And I'll also put it in the show notes for anybody who's interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So one on campus is going to be like the Instagram handle, and in that Instagram handle, there's in the link tree, they has the it will have all the times of when the groups are for adolescents and young adults. And what's really great about that is they have like this inspiration is the new medication, right? So it kind of is meeting kids before they end up in treatment. Like what is it that inspires these kids? Like, do you want to be a director? Do you want to be an actor or a painter? And they find these like conscious contributors in the community to come and speak to the kids and get them kind of motivated and linked up with, to find that inspiration. They're kind of like veering off into, not great. And then
definitely. And the parents definitely need education and support. And the other thing that you mentioned that I think is super important is community, right? Just having these conversations where, I feel like addiction is so misunderstood, and I feel like it's almost taboo. They're like, oh, that person's going to recovery, but actually it should be cause for celebration, right? And a very supportive, open process within the family and the people, all involved, because it really is a whole family healing together.
It really is. It really is. And it's like the beginning of, it can really be, if it's looked at in the appropriate way, it's like, the beginning of the rest of your life. It really is. It's like steps is like so over. It can be so rewarding.
Most definitely, it's a new beginning for sure. Well, I want to switch gears just a little bit. I know that we could probably talk the whole time about this, but I want to get to know more about you. And really, like, what challenges did you need to overcome in order to start your business? And what was the driving force behind creating the advocacy group?
So, I have been working as an advocate and working in advocacy for, I would say, I've always been kind of doing advocacy work. I've been working as a volunteer and working in service. I think, since I moved to Los Angeles, and I won't even say how long ago that was because I don't want to give my
You're like, it was just yesterday.
Absolutely. And, but I never really did it I didn't do it as a business. It was just something that I always did. And that being said, there's a huge, while we do this, the addiction and mental health piece is the piece, the main piece of what we do. We have a huge community service arm of our company, and I believe that service is the foundation of all that we do, and love and service is the foundation of everything that I do, and we do micro fundraisers and toy drives and food distribution, and we partner with local organizations and bring in our friends and community members, and we partner with their local companies to partner with these organizations, and it's a huge part of what we do. And that's something that I have always been doing since I've moved here. And when I guess about, I want to say 12 years ago, I started volunteering with a nonprofit organization with Aileen Getty. And it was a huge part of my recovery, my own personal recovery. And in doing that, I started working it just started this like trajectory of like, in my life of, where I I guess how it started was this woman left her baby with me. And then another woman left her baby with me. And that kind of began my journey of navigating children's court and foster care. And then one of the women who had left her baby with me, some things happened, and I ended up, navigating conservatorship court and mental health court, and that's kind of how my journey began. And it's been a long road. It's been an intense road, and then I didn't really see it becoming a job until just before the pandemic, until I had been working in entertainment for a long time, and business, that was always like my business was in, I learned business in entertainment, and it wasn't really fulfilling me in the way that I wanted to be fulfilled, and advocacy was always, it was just something that I was doing. And so turning and devoting my whole life to this advocacy and to this work, it seemed like the right thing to do. I was called to make that shift.
And it sounds. No, that was perfect. And I heard a few things in there I'd love to dig into a little bit. First of all, I want to just acknowledge you for what a beautiful life of service that you've created, and all the different ways that you have served children and just people in general, and that you have such a big heart for service. And I also heard in the beginning that you use service as a way to also heal during your recovery journey, which I think is a really important thing to expand on for the listeners and anybody that might be struggling with addiction right now. Is the best way to begin to heal is to just get out and see where we're needed, right? Get your feet on the ground and start doing things. And I'm always amazed by your Instagram feed, just how much you do out there in the community. You are always, have your hands on a project, and you're out there meeting the community face to face, even through this pandemic, which I just admire so much. So I just want to acknowledge you and just say, thank you for being such an amazing example, and just a testament to what can be done when we put our heart into our work. I think that's amazing.
I think one of the things that when I started this, that was like so important, especially when we started this community arm, is like, I truly, truly believe that people want to be of service, right? But they don't necessarily know how. Like, if you're like doctor, I have, obviously in this industry, like I have a lot of friends who are doctors and clinicians, and like, they've worked so hard and spent their life becoming doctors, and maybe they just don't have time to go do doctors without borders, or, mothers that want to volunteer at the hospital or at children's hospital, but the orientation is like once every 6 months and their kid has a recital that day. And people want to be of service, but they don't know how. And so the whole point of starting this community arm, or one of the points, was to gift people with the opportunity to be of service. And so that is,
I love that. That's amazing.
That's the point of this community arm, is like, what is it that you want to do, and we're going to help you get there, right? So do you want to, you want to work with, homeless women and children? Do you want to do, food distribution? You want to do the toy drive? Like, you want to, help get your kids involved in service? Is it moms and that want to get their children involved? Is it, whatever it is, we're going to gift you that opportunity. And that is our gift to the community, is to help people with, finding opportunities to be of service. And so, wherever it is and wherever you are, we're going to meet you where you're at and help get you there. And so that's been, it's been the big effort of what we're doing with that community arm. And I think we've done some really good work, and it's one of the things that I'm the most proud of, for sure.
I love that. I can hear the passion in your voice. Yes, and what a resource for people. I'm like, the fire's coming out, girl. I can feel it over here. It's amazing. Well, where do you get all the inspiration and the passion for this work? Like, where does that come from?
I would definitely say, like, more than inspiration, it is passion. passionate about it. Like, it's not, you know, that passion comes from, you know, when a family who is, you know, you see a family that's struggling or suffering, and when, you know, their loved one gets better or gets well, or even just gets, you know, somebody is just like adamant about, like, don't want help, I'm not going to treatment, and then they go, you know, or the light goes on, you know, that when that light goes on and you see them switch, you know what I mean? That it's not even like, it's not even about, like,
no, I know exactly what you're describing. You literally see the light go on in their eyes, and you're like, oh my God, there you are. There it is.
There it is. And it's not even about like the stopping the substances, right? Because it's like, without substances, there's still an emptiness, but it's that connection to source, right? And whatever source it is, right? Whether it's God, universe, whether you don't believe in, whatever it is, it's that connection back, that, you know, the human connect back to connecting, right? Because there's this vacancy when you are in your illness, you know, when you're in this disease, whether it's, you know, when you're in your addiction, you're in the throes of mental illness, you are disconnected from your family, you're disconnected from community, you're disconnected from source, like, you know, from God, a higher power, from whatever you're disconnected. And so when you are on a path of wellness, that connection comes back and the light goes on, you know, and to see people I mean, there is nothing, I did not find that working on a set, you know, and I got to tell you, I worked with some pretty incredible people, you know, like I had some huge successes working in entertainment. I worked with some really incredible people, and had some major wins in my job, in my past career. But there was nothing like that. Nothing like that. Nothing like seeing a mother whose child gets their life back. Nothing.
That's it. You're describing miracles. It's the miracles, and it really is a miracle of just rediscovering like you said, the connection with source again, and whatever that means, you know, to you individually. Because I believe that everyone's relationship with God is a personal one, or their higher power. But it is. I mean, there's no greater feeling than seeing that connection, and what a beautiful gift to give to people. And the thing that you're describing right now, just with your corporate life, where you had all these wins, where you were really in your level of excellence, right? You're in your lane of excellence. And then it sounds like you kind of hit a wall, and you're like, you know, even though I can do this with my eyes closed, I'm having all these big wins, it still wasn't fulfilling. And so it sounded like you reached even higher, probably wasn't with a little outside of your comfort zone, to really step into your zone of genius, right? And living there, I think that's what sets your passion on fire. And does that resonate with you?
It does. You know, I mean, there's something about, you know, working in entertainment where, you know, everything is like very paper thin. You know, it's like it can just disappear in an instant. And while, like, again, you know, I was working. I was, you know, doing very well in where I was, and was being treated well, and I was very happy. There just wasn't this, you know, there was like this, there were like you're running on people's like emotion, right, of like at the top, and people's like this, there's like a level of insecurity, and like nothing was like, didn't feel like real, you know, based in like realness. And while there's a lot of high stress and high emotion, and like, you know, like a win in here is like someone's life. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to, you know, it's like, I say, like, you know, when you are, I compare this to like, it's like, you know, like a car salesman, right? If somebody wins at their job is selling a car, they win selling a Nissan, right? Like for me, a loss is like a life. Like, you know what I mean? It's like there's so much to lose. And so there's so much intensity in this, you know, but, and then in entertainment, there just wasn't like the win was just, there was just nothing. There was no real win. You know what I mean? Like there just didn't feel like a win in my soul. And so, you know, I just think it's always been, this has just always been in my heart. You know, I can remember, you know, when I was 7, when we would come home from church, I lived in this, like in a small town, and there would always be this, we would drive by this McDonald's, and there would always be like a homeless person sitting outside the McDonald's, and my brain could not wrap around the fact that there was like somebody that did not have a home, and people would just drive by, you know, like it just, I couldn't, like it would sit in, I would have anxiety about it constantly. And that has never gone away. Like it's never gone away. Which is really difficult living in Los Angeles, because I live, you know what I mean? There's just this homeless situation is just,
it's overwhelming.
It's just unfathomable, you know?
Yeah.
It's I just can't. And so I cannot drive by a homeless person sitting in a wheelchair, and like my body, my heart, my soul cannot understand. Like I can't reconcile that. And so in my community, like I know we have an ongoing project going on with the homeless in our community, and I go out and feed people on, you know, regularly throughout the week, because I need to know who and where and why and what, you know, like who they are, what's going on, are they okay? Like I can't reconcile it. It's too much. And I can't know that about everybody. You know, I can't know about the 68,000 homeless people in Los Angeles. But in my community, like when I'm driving by every day, like I can know, you know, at least I know who the people, you know, what's going on in my community, you know, and I can talk about it, and I can encourage people, because it, like, I don't know, like I just think that there's like, you have to put up this armor just to go out and get a coffee, you know, and at least if you know, okay, that's Mike, or that's Johnny, or that's Will, or that's, you know what's going on with the people. Like it kind of can soften you a little bit to know, okay, you know, like Johnny's okay, and he's like what they're, you know, and maybe if they're not okay, you can provide some sort of like service, you know, to maybe help Johnny be okay, you know, because these are people in our community, you know, that we share. These are our community members, you know.
Yeah, and I think that is such an LA thing. That is such an LA thing, to step over somebody that's homeless and go to like a, you know, 5-star dining experience, right? And I think what you're talking about is humanizing your community, right? And I think that if we had, I really believe if more people had the attitude that you did, that we would really create a whole different world just by looking at how we can affect our immediate environment, our immediate community. No, and just doing something small gestures even to help out.
Yes, and I think we have to, because if we're waiting for Garcetti to do something, if we're waiting for Gavin to do something, we are going to.
It's not going to happen.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not. It's absolutely not. You know, I heard. I was went to a screening of this this documentary that we're going to hopefully be screening soon, called Bedlam, which was it absolutely took my breath away. And John Sharon, who's the medical director of the Department of Mental Health, he said, you know, if you are waiting for the government to fix this situation, you will be waiting forever. You know, it is the responsibility to have to, as a community, to start taking part in doing something. And, you know, I look at like the Nextdoor app, you know, on my Nextdoor app, and I don't know if it's just the neighborhood that I live in, which I am actively looking to move out of my neighborhood, because my neighbors are they are like terrorists. Like they are of the people in the community, the way they talk about the homeless in this community. And I don't know if it's just because they're hiding behind a keyboard, but it is some of the worst stuff. It's appalling. You know, it's just appalling. And I don't know where it would be better, you know, and in this, there definitely is, you know, it's terrible what's going on with the homeless in this community. And I don't have the answer. I just know what I can do to try to, for me, you know, what I can do, you know, as one person. So I don't know.
Exactly. Well, and I think what you just described to us is the answer, that every single one person, if every person who hears this makes a commitment to just doing some small gestures, taking the time that they have to go an extra mile just to check on somebody, to humanize somebody rather than just drive by somebody in distress, or to take a moment to find a resource, that in itself makes a huge difference, just in reminding people that are homeless that they are human beings, because they want to be acknowledged, they want to be seen and heard, and and just like everybody else, right? And I think that the people that you're describing that are basically treating them as if they're not human, and desensitizing to their own needs, I think that that's what's creating the greater problem.
And I really love that, Rick, because there's, what you just said is so important, because I think a lot of people get caught up in this thought. I talk about this a lot, right? And people think, well, I don't want to give money because they're just going to use it for drugs, or I can't afford to like buy food for somebody every time I like walk out of a gas station, I'm getting hit up for whatever. So, what you just said is so important, right? It's that active, like, there's so much in just not looking past something. There's so much just the act of eye contact and a smile, and even if or just saying like, I'm sorry, I don't have cash on me right now. The small act of acknowledgement is such a huge thing, or what, and then to go a step further, what I always do is I always carry socks, right? Because socks are huge, of huge value. Right. And I get them, you can order them online. You can get them in downtown or whatever, but black socks, not white socks, black socks, because they're like, it's like 50 cents a pair or something. You can buy them in bulk. And I always will just hand out socks, because it's like giving away 50 cents. It's not, you're not giving out money. If you have a judgment around money, you're not giving out money. And nobody, if people say, I try to give away my food, and people turn away food, no one's going to turn away your socks. No one turns away socks. But so those are really two things that I could suggest is that just eye contact, a smile, and interaction, that costs you nothing.
Exactly.
It costs nothing.
Kindness costs nothing. I love that.
Kindness costs nothing. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, with all of the heavy things that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, because you deal with a lot, I've heard some of your stories, and you live an intense life of service. And so what do you do to maintain your clarity? Are there any practices that you do, or what keeps you grounded?
My clarity? So I started a pretty, I guess I think maybe I would say regimented, like a pretty strong, regimented, I don't know what the right word is, but a pretty strong meditation practice a couple of years ago. I was going through a pretty difficult time pre-pandemic. And I mean, like, a really difficult time. And I was going through some transitions in my life. And it was before I had started this company. I was working in this profession still, but I was going through some serious transitions. And I've been doing some stuff and spending a lot of time in Haiti for a lot of years. And my partner, who I've been working with, he was very offering me a lot of support during that time. And he, I don't know if you remember, there was like those two planes that crashed a couple of years ago, that Ethiopian Airlines crash, and and I can't remember where the other one was, in Thailand or something, but he was on that Ethiopian Airlines crash, and it completely changed everything for me. It just, my whole world stopped, and it changed, like, the way that I was speaking, my words, like the way that I was talking to myself, the words that I was saying, like everything in my body changed cellularly. And what I was saying, the words that I was saying to myself, the words that I was saying, like that I was putting out into the world, I think like I would always, because I was in this great, like this weird depression, I would just be like, I'm going to die. I would just be saying like these, a lot of a negative dialogue, and the words just changed. And it was like instantly. And I feel that the presence is like a big piece of that. And then I started this meditation practice fairly instantly when he passed, and everything changed for me in that moment, like pretty much in that moment. And that's been a huge part of, I think, my work. It's been a huge part of like what I've drawn into my life. Like, there's been so much abundance has come into my life since with this meditation. And also I feel like I have this person who has been such a huge part of my service. He was my partner in service, and I feel like he's with me like always. And I think that's been a huge part of everything.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I bet there's a lot of people that are listening that have gone through a grief and just struggle, and just hearing how you persevered, and how important how we speak to ourselves is, that that inner dialogue. It's also got to be kind. So even if we're outwardly kind to other people, when we're in times of turmoil and being tested, so to speak, that that inner dialogue that game has got to get even tighter, that we are our own personal cheerleader, that we are feeding ourselves positivity and using meditation to really ground and take back the focus.
100%. Yeah. I think I take that into everything, like I think even as much as like, we're talking about it in speaking with homeless people, like I take that into, I go to a lot of the same places regularly. Like I go to the same gas station, I go to the same coffee shops, I go to the same restaurants, and I'm always, I always make eye contact and talk to people at the gas station, at the market, because you think about like how many people go into the gas station and are just on the phone, or just, they don't. And so I know, the guy at the gas station, I know, how many kids he has, where they go to school, his kids' names, where, when they're graduating, when they graduate, I make an effort to have interactions with people that I see on a daily basis. I think it makes a difference, and it makes
I think we're losing your connection a little bit.
Feel better in my day to have those interactions. I think those things are so so important, and for me it adds a lot of value to my being as well.
And I think it's something that's so easily. Oh yes, I can hear you now. It was coming in and out a little bit, but I understood what you're conveying, which is, really about the human connection piece, which I know in the beginning of the conversation, you said that in addiction, people are feeling isolated, right? And I think everybody's feeling isolated to some degree, and the ways that we can combat that feeling of isolation and disconnection is exactly what you're saying. What you're describing now is just taking the time to connect with whoever is in front of you, and making eye contact with them. I love that so much. And again, back to that kindness costs nothing, right? Kindness is free, but it's so meaningful when we actually look each other in the eye and just acknowledge the acknowledgement that there's another human being on the other side of that counter, of somebody that's providing a service for you. Because ultimately you don't know what they're really going through, or what they were struggling with at home, or what's going on in their heart, right? And so just that small act of kindness can make a huge impact, not only for ourselves, so we feel more connected, but also for the other person that's providing this, that's just standing there in front of you, right?
100%. 100%. Absolutely. You did hear me.
Yes. Yeah. It came in and out a little bit, but I'm like, I got you, girl. I know what you're saying. I hear you. I can feel it coming through. Amazing. Well, I know that we're coming up to the end, so I'm going to ask you just one more question, and this one is really just about, what's your biggest challenge right now? That if it were solved, you would be able to earn more money, have more time for yourself, or just freedom in general.
If it was, say that again, my biggest challenge of what?
That if it were solved, you'd be able to earn more money or time or freedom, whatever is most dear to you right now. Like, what's your biggest challenge? Because I know every entrepreneur is always juggling multiple things, right? So I hate the word balance because I don't think we ever achieve balance. I think that's a fable. But I think we can certainly look for some harmony in our lives. And part of that comes with focusing on what's important to us.
I think my biggest challenge right now is really trying to with COVID, how we're going to transition out of this, because again, like I said, with the type of clients that I deal with, they're battling a disease that wants them dead or completely isolated. Mm-hmm. And so coming out of a year of isolation, getting people, out of that mode of isolation, I think we have yet to see, the effects of this past year. We have no idea how this was going to impact us as a nation and as a world. I think that the ramifications of this are going to be so long.
Mm-hmm. It's huge. It's going to be a generational thing when we look at the way it affects our kids and people in active addiction. Yeah.
100%. I mean, I've got so many, I was over at Audubon Middle School in Crenshaw the other day, and with the vice principal, and she's, a lot of their kids aren't coming back to school. They're all on the iPads. And she said they're dealing with so much mental health issues, and they don't have the resources. They just don't have the resources. And this is one school, and I just think we just have no idea, and I have so many kids who are, they're buying and selling pills on Snapchat. There's no regulation of Snapchat. I've got kids overdosing. I've got families who have lost children to this. I've got kids who have overdosed. The way with the fentanyl is just, I mean, it is an epidemic. It is just with no control. And so between those things, with the Snapchat and the fentanyl and the isolation and the COVID, I just think we have, and I don't think it's being talked about enough. I think that I'm not a COVID denier by any means. I think that COVID is, I understand the severity of that, but I don't think that there is enough attention being paid to the severity of fentanyl, how these kids are getting a hold of it.
How are they getting a hold of it? I'm really curious.
Impact that this they're getting it on. I mean, they're moving it around to each other on Snapchat. They're getting it to each other. They're not just getting it like from their parents anymore, which is like scarier. They're getting it like, they're buying it, from these dealers, and it's pressing it on their own. It's being pressed with fentanyl, and it's just wiping out slews of children.
Wow, I had no idea. How well, this is a really important topic. Do you have any tips or any identifiers for parents that might have, and at what age range are you seeing this first? And then do you have any advice for parents who are listening that have kids in that age range to kind of, keep an eye out?
I believe, and it's not, people have differing opinions, but I believe in looking at monitoring your kids' phones, devices, 150%. Because while a lot of, parents or therapists think like that kids should have their own privacy, like, I mean, you can give your kids privacy, but you're at risk, like they could also die, at the risk of having, do you want your kids to have privacy, or do you want them to be alive, is my theory. Like I come from that school of thought. Like I would prefer my kid to be alive than to be, because it would be a grave mistake. Like
I can't even imagine being in that situation. I just can't even fathom that.
And because it only takes one time, and that's the problem, is it's not like your kid doesn't have to be showing signs or like out there partying or on drugs. It takes one time and it is over. You don't have to have a kid who is, I think he's smoking pot or he's partying with his friends one time. And I got families who it was one time. And there's kid, and talking with this principal, it's happening in 5th grade.
Oh my God, that's so young. 5th grade?
Having these issues, yes, that these kids are starting to show signs of, of depression and that are having these issues in 5th grade. It's and again, like it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse as we see the ramifications of what this year of isolation has done. And I don't think that, not to to be scare tactic, or I don't think 5th grade is the norm, but it is happening, and I think, but middle school is where it's starting, and 5th grade is just right before middle school, right? Because it's 6, 7, and 8, and that's where it's really starting to happen. Kids, it's in middle school. It's not just high school anymore. It's in middle school.
Wow.
The exposure is happening, so.
Well, as a parent, I mean, my son is only 6 years old, but I can already see that being really involved in your child's education and everything that they're doing is so important. And I think if there's anything that the pandemic taught me as a parent, is that there is no hands-off parenting. There is not. Like, if you're a responsible parent, I really believe that you have to step in and be involved. And yes, we've had to be the teacher and the driver and the cook, and then also have full-time jobs. But our kids also need a higher, level of touch and a higher level of attention and care that that this pandemic has just shed a light on, because I think it's always been that way. But yeah, I think even more reason as a parent to really make sure that your eyes are on everything that they're doing.
Yeah, and I think knowing who their friends' parents are, having a constant like open dialogue with their friends. One thing I will say that like I want to get this in there is this whole myth of like, as long as they're doing it at home, like the smoking pot thing, like I cannot with this, like that like, I don't believe in the criminalization of drug. I mean, that's another topic, but like, the smoking weed, like this weed is not the weed that like we were smoking or our parents were smoking. Like it is completely unregulated, and the chemicals that are in this weed, it is, I mean, there's more kids with drug-induced states of psychosis in the hospitals right now from marijuana and weed than there is from crystal meth or any other drugs right now. So
and it's so strong. It's strong. It's not like, I mean, it's incredibly strong.
It's causing psychosis in kids, and some of the damage is irreparable. These kids are not able to it's damaging their brains, and they're not coming back. It's doing permanent damage. So that myth of like it's just weed, it's not a true story.
No.
Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. No, I'm listening.
Did I lose you on my weed PSA?
No, no,
like,
not at all.
Marijuana PSA in there?
No, I agree, because it's
very important PSA. It's very important.
Like, it is, and I completely agree, because it's not the same as when we were growing up. I mean, the stuff that they're producing now, I mean, it's a whole different animal. And even though it's becoming legalized in a lot of ways, it's still not for kids. None of it. I mean, I as an adult, I really I don't partake, right? But I just think that if we can just encourage our kids to feel good in a healthy way, and maintain our participation in their life, and just watch that closely. And yeah, kids, I think they just naturally want to experiment, and we don't want to buckle down so hard that they become rebellious. But it is also, like you said, about addiction. We just have to be educated, and we have to be ready, and we've got to let our kids know that there is permanent repercussions for some of the actions that they might think is just for fun, right?
100%. Yeah, and they have to. I mean, they need to be able to learn how to use their internal coping mechanisms, and be able to use those muscles, and it completely hinders their ability to use their frontal lobes. Like it just cuts everything off. It's terrible. It's really really bad, the damage it's being done.
I'm like, that is a whole nother talk. We've got to do another session just about
to get
coping
the mirroring
mechanism. The what? The mirroring app?
Say it again.
Oh, I said we'll have to do a whole nother episode on.
There's a lot of like apps so that you can watch on your kids. Yeah, for sure. 100%. There's apps that you can use to be able to monitor your kids' phones, and I definitely encourage that.
Oh, that's good. Well, I will definitely put. You said the mirroring app. Is it just called that, or is there one in particular?
There's apps that you can do to be able to monitor your kids' phones.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know, because that's something I wasn't actually aware of. So I think a lot of parents out there would find that useful. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know we're coming up on an hour here, and we have so many amazing things that you shared about today. And I am just honored that you would share your story, your background, and just sharing some tips with us on how to work with loved ones that are in addiction, your work with the homeless population, which is also part of our greater community, and then also with our kids. So I think there's just so many different ways that you offer resources to the community. How can people get in touch with you? What's the best way?
They can go to my website, or they can actually call me directly. Is there a thing that you can put in on here?
Yeah, so I can drop that in the show notes. And then what's your Instagram if they wanted to follow you on Instagram?
The Instagram and the website is all the same. It's the Advocacy Group.co is the Instagram, and it's also the same as the website. It can get very confusing. It's not .com, it's .co, but
okay,
it's all the same. The Instagram and the website.
Amazing. Well, thank you again. I've really enjoyed this chat, and we will, until next time. Of course. I appreciate you so much. And for everybody that's listening, if you listened all the way to the end, we really appreciate you. I'd love to hear your feedback. Please subscribe to this podcast so we can bring you more great content. And if you have questions for Lauren, feel free to reach out to her directly. I'm also always available to you at riss@narissasue.com. And finally, I want to invite you, if you're listening right now, to join my breathwork circle. We have it every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. And it is a women's circle that is available, that I do as a love offering for the community, for women business leaders, entrepreneurs, and just anybody that wants to come and decompress and really get clear. Because I definitely believe that when we get clear, we are unstoppable. So until next time. Oh, thank you. Yes.
Love it.
Thank you for that. Yes, Lauren's been to the Women's Breathwork Circle. So, and it's something I absolutely love to do.
Yep, it's a game changer.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, until next time, we'll say goodbye and live in gratitude, stay connected, and be light.